In this lesson we're going to look at types of dependent clauses. Before we do that, it's important to know exactly what a dependent clause is. Dependent clauses are commonly known as subordinate clauses. A clause is a group of sentences that has a subject and a verb combination, and the two types are independent and dependent. So this sentence has both an independent and a dependent clause. So if we look at the independent clause, he had to give up work. An independent clause is a complete thought, which means it can be used on its own. However, a dependent clause, because he injured his back, that is an incomplete thought, so it can't be used on its own. You can't just say, because he injured his back. It doesn't make sense. You need the independent clause as well for the sentence to make sense. So it is dependent on the first clause, therefore called a dependent clause. Now there are three main types of clauses, dependent clauses: noun clauses, adverbial clauses, and adjective or relative clauses. So we'll look at each of these in turn. Now noun clauses first of all. So this type of dependent clause is used in two main ways. The first way is using question word conjunctions such as where, what, when, but also if and whether to create implicit questions. And the noun clause usually follows the main independent clause. So for some examples, I'm not sure where he went. They don't know when they will arrive. Can you recall if you picked up my wallet? I'm wondering whether I should go or not. The other way noun clauses are used is in that clauses, which are common to see, and they usually express some kind of mental state, necessity, possibility or truth. That is often left out. So here's some more examples. I'm disappointed that you aren't coming. The Prime Minister is convinced that she'll win the election. I think that it was the right thing to do. It's essential that you study hard. It's likely it will rain tomorrow, or that it will rain tomorrow. She is certain her money was stolen. Now we'll move on to adverbial clauses. These types of dependent clauses act as adverbs and tell us something about the information that is in the independent clause. So these are some common purposes of adverbial clauses and common subordinating conjunctions used with them. They're often used for condition, for giving reasons, times, purpose, and concession. And next to those you'll see some examples of the words used. So with adverbial clauses, the dependent clause can go before or after the independent clause. So here are some examples. These are examples of them going before, but remember they could be either way. As it's his birthday, let's book a nice restaurant. In order to improve hospitals, there must be more investment. Or after, I will go if you go as well. You will lose weight as soon as you change your diet. He's upset. He failed the test even though it's his own fault. So those could go the other way around. So for example, with the first one, you could say, if you go as well, I will go. So they can be moved around. Now the final type of dependent clause is adjective or relative clauses. And in this case, it's a clause acting as an adjective because it modifies a noun or pronoun. So the clause will start with a relative pronoun. For example, which, who, that, whom, where, whose. And it usually comes directly after the noun. It's modifying. So unlike adverbial clauses. So the position where it appears in the independent clause will vary. So in these examples of adjective clauses, the noun being modified is underlined. So the church, which is from the 14th century, he's the one who stole the car. The student that spoke in class was placed in detention. Bristol is a city where I grew up. Ian, whose house is at the end of the street, hates living there. So these clauses are either identifying the noun or giving more information about it. So those are the three types of dependent clauses. You can get more information and more grammar lessons here from Grammar Whiz.